First of all, Mark, on Filth.
Well, let's start with all the great stuff. I think that James McAvoy's performance is extraordinary. I think he's a really great screen presence. He won the Rising Star, BAFTA all those years ago, and he's done nothing but go from strength to strength. It's a very, very impressive performance. As you rightly said in that interview, he's on screen most of the time. And the story is about his, the collapse of his character. And he's having to do that thing about being, on the one hand, sort of loathsome and putrid and foul. And on the other hand, he talked himself about, he said, you won't like this character, but we have to kind of make you interested and we have to make you care about him. I also think that in terms of its design and its approach, it's bold and it's inventive. It's taken some of the elements of the novel that it's kind of wrestled with. The tapeworm was mentioned, and tried to think of constructive solutions to those issues. Because the fact of the matter is that despite the fact that we think of Trainspotting and, Acid House and Ecstasy and those things, Irvine Welsh is not the most obvious person to be adapted for the screen. And there may be a dark truth behind all this, which is that he's not the world's most cinematic writer. I think in terms of Irvine Welsh on screen, it is the best Welsh adaptation we've seen since Trainspotting. However, I think it's a hard film to like, and it's a hard film to like for a number of reasons. That doesn't mean I don't admire it. It doesn't mean that I don't think his performance is brilliant. Incidentally, loads of other performances are great. Eddie Marsan is terrific. Shirley Henderson is terrific. Each of the individual elements, I think, are very well done. The problem for me is there's a scene in Trainspotting in which Renton climbs down a toilet, and it's pushed so far, and then Danny Boyle turns it into something else, and it becomes this epiphany when suddenly he's in clear, fresh water, and he's sort of swimming around. There's almost like an Excalibur moment, and it's like this sort of great moment of transcendence. And in the case of this, you don't get this. What you get is your head being pushed ever further down the toilet, and it is a film of people swimming in a sort of quagmire of corruption and mental collapse and ever unraveling personal catastrophe. I know that people have talked about it as being funny, and there is scathing black humour in there and gallows humour and rampant misanthropy and, as he quite rightly said of his character, misogyny and racism and sectarianism and all those other things as well. The problem is that the tone of it is relentlessly black, and although it has been billed as a comedy, and I've seen some quotes on the posters saying, riotous,
Feel-good film of the decade.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't laugh very much. And I found that grimy, grim, downbeat, dour, sort of vomit-strewn tone rather oppressive after a while. So I think my sort of overall reaction to it is, I admire what they've done. I think it's a bold stab at a text. I think his performance is terrific. I think the film itself doesn't achieve that thing which Trainspotting, and this is a bit like saying, well, it's not Clockwork Orange, because, Trainspotting is extraordinary, and you still look at it now and go, it did something which was brilliant. John Hodges' screenplay for Trainspotting had an affection for the characters. And I don't find that affection here. And that's partly because that's being honest and true to the text. And it's partly because that's the way the film has decided to play it. Very black, very misanthropic, very, dirty, grimy. I mean, the title says it all. The genius of Trainspotting was that it went beyond that and did get something else, which was to do with a kind of empathy. And Danny Boyle always said, the characters are on the one hand junkies, but that's not all they are. They are other things as well. And I found it an easy movie to admire, a very, very hard movie to like. What did you think?
It's tough. I mean, I agree pretty much with everything that you said, because you wonder at James McAvoy's performance, which, as I said, it is...
It's great.
It will steal all the headline. I mean, it is his movie.
It is
carries
his movie,
the whole thing from start to finish. But it is tough and it is grim, and it stays with you for a couple of hours afterwards as still being grim. I mean, we haven't talked about some of the grimmiest bits.
No, because we're on at 3:10 in the afternoon.
No, I know. I mean, we're leaving it to the imagination.
But also, I think that I do, it may have been possible to do something with that. They haven't decided to do that. They have sort of gone full on, full throttle, blah, and that's okay. But that's, in a way, I need something else to mediate it. I need something else to take it beyond that level. And the things that I'm finding are James McAvoy's performance. It is extraordinary, and he does brilliantly with it. It's just the film itself. I don't I can't say I like it.
So I suppose people might think, okay, well, the Jim Broadbent bit, which we played a clip of, and Eddie Marsan.
Well, the Jim Broadbent thing is a kind of complicated solution to a complex problem. Eddie Marsan plays his character. I mean, these are beautifully drawn vignettes because, I mean, Eddie Marsan, I think, is one of the finest actors working on screen today. Shirley Henderson never puts a foot wrong. I mean, just never does. There was a week when there was like 5 films out and they all had Shirley Henderson in them, and they were all really good. So the individual elements are all there. Also, the narrative has this strange thing that as it kind of unravels, it moves towards this kind of melodramatic psycho thing, which I don't think works, incidentally. But that's not the central problem. The central problem for me is the tone of unremitting squalor needed to have been leavened by something that was in the end more transcendent, and that wasn't what they were aiming for, and that's not what I got.